This has the potential to be one of the most unhinged videos we might have ever watched together, and we have the pleasure of being able to sit through this together. This is Teyvat's best inspector, Teyvat's favorite inspector, who inspects everything from lamplights to dogs to bars to working conditions. This is Brevity, and she apparently is fixing Genshin Impact's map in 44 minutes. Strap in.
I was admiring Genshin Impact's map just the other day when I came to a realization. Its map is kind of all over the place. Where are all the roads and symbols? I know for a fact that there's a road here and a house there, but guess what? They're not marked down on the map. Now, you can argue it really depends on how we view the map of Genshin. Whether it's meant to be the equivalent of an in-world map made by its...
Just as a little...
Whether it's meant to be the equivalent...
What do you call it? Side note here, I did finish Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood for the first time the other day with Viv, and it's gone onto my top 3 favorite animes of all time, and I haven't seen that many, to be fair, not yet, but it is definitely up there. It is goated. The final arc was absolutely phenomenal.
Equivalent of an in-world map made by its inhabitants, or if the map we see is meant purely for the player. And I do think if we're looking at it from an NPC perspective, it makes sense that not everything is drawn on the map.
What the
because
hell?
It potentially has yet to be discovered, or simply isn't deemed important enough to put down. From a player's perspective, I find
Haikyuu is best. I'm so not biased. Well, I'm also watching Haikyuu. I'm on like season 2 right now with Viv, and it's Viv's favorite anime, I think. It's very, very good. I love the comedy in Haikyuu. It's also... when we finish it, it'll probably be on my top 3 as well. It's very, very good. I love like all the characters.
Be discovered, or simply isn't deemed important enough to put down. From a player's perspective, I find myself often disappointed that the map does not always match its in-game landscape and world. But this is of course understandable at the same time. Building it up too much could make the experience worse for the player, not better. Just how much of the map did they deem important enough to fill in, and what did they choose to leave?
Wait, where the hell does the map not like look the same as the world? What?
What if it was truly accurate to its in-game world? Our plan for this video is to both find this out and fill the map in for ourselves. So we mark down all the roads on the map and add any missing markers and labels. Call me Mika, because today I'm gonna cartography my way all over the map. Yeah, I definitely did not use. I'm gonna cartography my way all over the map.
Why does that sound wrong?
Yeah, I definitely did not use that word correctly. Let me take you on a cartography journey, exploring the corners of Teyvat, and hopefully have the map make just a bit more sense in the process.
The capybara are very cute.
Disclaimer, I am not a cartographer nor a map or game expert. This video is purely for fun. Okay, thank you for listening to my PSA. And let me introduce you to our team joining us for today's video. The A-team. Myself, Hat Guy, Yaylan, and Mualani. Finally,
no
with our
Shenmue is a crime.
in hand, we head off. And we might as well start where all journeys in Teyvat do, and that is in Mondstadt, where the story begins, and maybe even where it ends. So I think starting out with Mondstadt, especially with it being the first region in the game, it's going to be the most bare bones and not as fully fleshed out as the other regions' maps.
Yeah, understandable.
Liyue though does have much the same problem. Oh boy, okay. There's gonna be
Liyue has a lot of open space with nothing going on. It does.
A lot more to this than I thought. And as you can see, we've already got our first problem. Now these kind of map inconsistencies are particularly interesting. As we all know, Starfell Lake has changed as a result of Klee's fish blasting, but there's more we can potentially infer from the map. With Starfell Lake, we're left with the impression that it must have been recent, if the map has yet to be updated to match the surrounding landscape. But if you look over here at Cider Lake, Klee's blast over in the mountains has been recorded down on the map. So this suggests that this must have taken place quite a while ago, whereas Starfell Lake's landscaping is a more recent development. Now whether any of these differences in
did it look different though?
The map are intentional is another story, but it's food for thought. We also have the infer from the Lake has changed as a result of inconsistencies.
Where's the inconsistency? I feel like I'm high. Hold on.
Particularly interesting. As we all know, Starfell.
I feel like it looks about right, no? Or is it saying like it's missing the rocks or something?
Lake has changed as it's recorded down on landscaping is a more recent development. Now whether any of these differences in the map are intentional is another story, but it's food for thought. We also have these smaller worn down paths all over the area, but we'll come back to those in a bit. Following the road further along, we arrive at another map inconsistency, a confusing one at that. As you can see, whenever this map version was initially drawn, the path existed along here. Now stay with me here, but I wonder if perhaps this used to be more than just a small puddle, because this as it is now is just a puddle. It's nowhere near deep enough to be a pond, and it has no other body of water connected to it either, and it's become shallow enough that people who use this route just go through it now. These lines on the map suggest it could have at one point in time been bigger and maybe dried
it does actually, maybe like a little lake
up. But again, I'm not a water expert, so I don't really know how this could be explained, other than maybe hydro slimes and Teyvat elemental stuff that are keeping the water here. As we all know, Teyvat has its own laws. Our first side quest takes us over to Stormbearer Mountains. This path isn't super clear, but we'll find this is the case for a lot of roads in Teyvat. And for this one, considering the dock is used fairly often, I'm inclined to place a clear path here as we head further up the mountains, and fix the missing dock icon too. Now I would make the argument that the roads in Stormbearer Mountain are main roads, and as such important enough to be marked down properly. For roads and paths that aren't as clear or seem to be used less frequently, we'll lower the opacity of them. It will mostly depend on what we can infer about the area. Take this part here for example. It's unlikely that these paths are being used and worn down by people, but rather monsters and hillochells, and you can see they're rarely used. Whereas compared to Stormbearer Mountains, you can argue that these roads are at least trekked by human NPCs a lot more, which we have clear evidence for with this adventurer, and more so with Mondstadt's lore, which we'll come back to.
Isn't that the really annoying adventurer?
Another small thing of note over here is that the Anemo hypostasis have a path leading up to it, while the Electro one does not. What the implications of this are, I have no idea. Maybe it's simply too far out for people to regularly check up on. As the path goes on, it passes a few more of these weird puddle ponds. Yep, that's what we're calling them now. The even more confusing thing is though, that these ones have vegetation growing out of them too. And even colour lilies, you know, the local specialty that only grows near water sources. But this is a puddle. I do also believe that this tent is a unique structure found only at this spot,
it might just be another Clee fish blasting thing, right?
To mark down. Now this is a watchtower. Those will be marked down along the way. Our path mostly stops here at this small waterfall, but if we look on the other side, it is a continuous path. Just be careful not to slip. Heading through this route, we end up at the second tower where the path just sort of stops here, and then finally at the very end, another path that just stops abruptly. In a way, this does make perfect sense.
This is the 40-minute brevity video,
yes. Storm warnings, but since they're rarely utilized now, the tower closest, and therefore easiest to access from the city, is going to be used more frequently. And Vind seems to be the only one to come this far out.
Will this be uploaded? Probably not to YouTube, I don't know.
With all that out of the way, we can get back to the main road. Now there isn't much to look at in Mondstadt City's case, but if you've looked at the map of Genshin as much as I have, you will have also seen that the dock is not on it. So let me there we go. Let's get the Star Snatch Cliff and Windrise
It's a pretty cool idea, man.
Quickly first too. These are all the paths along this part. This is an area in frequent use by the hillochells, so I mapped the road with a bit of opacity again, as it's not what we would consider a main road. As for the rest of it, being the early and as such
why is she talking like AI? Brother, have you heard AI?
Region. Mondstadt is the only region to not have any of its ruins marked
Someone talking
down,
clear and concise ain't AI.
Like Thousand Winds Temple. And this is even more obvious when you compare 1.0 Mondstadt to 1.2 Dragonspine, where they started adding a lot more detail to the map. So we will also add any ruins too at the end of the Mondstadt segment. For now, we reverse back toward the Windrise tree, which, might I also add, should definitely appear on the map. Not just this, but half of the road to get here to this extremely important tree that I'm sure loads of Mondstadt citizens visit.
Doesn't really show on the map.
And since it's a main road, arguably one of the most important for the region, I've made it the same color as its adjacent road, and at the very least, given the location of the tree a bit more depth. The thing is that if you examine the rest of the map, none of the trees actually appear on it. The sacred sakura isn't there at all. The closest we get is Sumeru, but of course, to make the city visible to the players, only the roots are drawn on. So I opted for a middle ground here. Yeah, so as it turns out, I forgot about a few trees that do show up on the map. So in actuality, there is zero reason why Windrise shouldn't already be drawn on. Continuing on, there's the road past the tree that connects back up to this main road.
I'm very surprised Windrise is not on the map.
Dragonspine. And just before we get onto the big three hillochells camps, here's something else rather perplexing. This. Why is there a small path outside only this domain? Regardless, the paths in the hillochells camps look like someone started and then just never finished drawing them in. And they're all in different colors too, when in the overworld they're the same as every other road in Mondstadt. We've come across a few in Mondstadt already, but these brown...
You know, this video is making me realize that the map in Genshin might be one of the most biggest inconsistencies in the whole game.
Circles here connote a big hillochells hut. These are the map decisions that puzzle me the most, however. It could make sense if you were trying to scale things down, while still indicating that a camp exists here, and as such only placing 1 or 2 huts. But when this camp is the only one missing a hut, it doesn't really make much sense. Heading back along the road to Springvale, it's the same over in this hillochells camp too. You know, now that I look at it, doesn't that pond kind of look like the seeds that the Koroks give you from Breath of the Wild? Considering Mondstadt City...
Chat. if y'all have played Breath of the Wild, and collected the Korok seeds, do y'all know what the Korok seeds are? Because I'm going to enlighten you right now. When you collect every single Korok seed in the entire game, you go back and give it to the Korok person, and they give you a golden one, and it's literal shit. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. When I found that out, I was so sad.
Yes, I did count and make sure each one was there. We'll use the Mondstadt city.
Is it not technically a widely accepted headcanon? It's not confirmed it is. I'm pretty sure they tell you, or like it's in the description of the golden Korok that it's shit, I think.
For Springvale too.
Pretty
After checking
certain.
all of the eastern side of Mondstadt, it was the last stretch.
Oh
this is
god, that
another
made my
one
head
I believe
feel
should
funny.
be on the map as a main road, since the statue is in a prime location
welcome
for
in, Yuki.
NPCs to go
And
and
happy
visit.
birthday
I
as
added
well.
a few
For
smaller
when it
paths
is.
where they should be, and also this. We'll get back to this little piece of land in a bit. Storm Terror's Lair is just one big ruin and doesn't really follow the rules of the rest of the map. Maybe it's that same reason as to why the rest of Mondstadt's vibe also feels different. That feeling of being not quite finished that makes Storm Terror's map design just feel off.
Yeah, I can kind of get this. It does kind of look like Withering in Sumeru, but honestly, I really do like how detailed they went with this area compared to the rest of Mondstadt. I feel like there's a lot more detail here than in other places. Even though the colors might be a little bit off, like this is supposed to be stony and stuff, it does look a little bit off, but the actual attention to detail is crazy, dude.
And it's still pretty accurate anyway, so we're just going to skip past that. Besides, no one is going to come here unless they have a death wish. As for Wolvendom and Brightcrown, well, considering barely anyone is going to be using these roads, aside
depth,
from
which
maybe
is nice. It
adventurers,
does.
I opted to make them fairly opaque. This area consists mainly of just ruins scattered around and a whole load of monsters, so they're the only ones really forming these tracks. But I did want to just point out some things about this. Namely, just like Stormbearer, there's a certain eeriness to these parts of Mondstadt.
How bored do you have to be to do this? Well, here's the thing. I think Brevity is a underdog genius in the Genshin Impact community. Because here's the thing. A lot of these videos at face value and the ideas seem so uninteresting, but you're so intrigued by the idea that you click it. And brother, you'll sit here for 45 minutes and be thoroughly entertained by something that you never thought you would ever want to watch. This woman is a genius, man. And she is a fantastic content creator. Honestly, it's a niche in the Genshin community that has never been touched on and never been hit. And it's very, very hard to break into a very oversaturated community nowadays and pop off as much as she has, dude. She's a genius.
Plus the weird design decisions and unfinishedness? Yeah, let's roll with it. The unfinishedness of it. For instance, take this little forest. Plopping a single structure down sometimes can be all it needs to demonstrate to the player that there once was...
And let's be honest, going to a different nation and restructuring the map and stuff is definitely in her British blood. Like, that's...
civilization here, until said player looks closer and realizes that there's no other indication of a village or town at all. If this has stood the test of time, there should at the very least be more evidence of people living here, or this ruin, which I'm sure we all remember from farming ruin guards back in the day. Why does this road towards Storm Terror's lair just abruptly stop, with absolutely zero evidence of any structure connected to it in this vicinity? Ruins don't tend to just disappear. But moving on, you remember how earlier we talked about those old Hilichel huts that for some reason didn't make it on the map? Well, there's another example of this over at Dragonspine with the Fatui huts. What makes it more confusing is that they placed all but one down, and the icons aren't wholly consistent either. But if they've used
it's the small inconsistencies like this that like annoy me more than just not putting something in. If there's 3 huts, why only put 2 on the map, dude?
Same one for both types of tent, then...
Like, honestly, if it's a hut or a tent, like, in my opinion, don't even bother putting it on the map. Because it could easily be moved around and stuff, right? It could have been put up yesterday. It's not like a tree is going to have grown yesterday, but a hut, a tent, dude, it's a temporary structure.
We'll just do the same. One interesting factoid about Mondstadt, which I was actually really surprised about, and I think I must have Mandela'd myself or something, is that there are no treasure hoarders in the whole of Mondstadt, aside from this little area here in Dragonspine. I could have sworn there were more all over, but nope, that's it. Dragonspine is the kind of place that is only going to be traversed by a select few,
that's true.
So understandably won't have great pathing. What they have done, however, is use smaller and thinner road markings for the outskirts that are less traveled. The most that Dragonspine really needs is just a few more road markings here and there. And finally, the
honestly
ruins.
Fair.
Oh, I did also just add the nameless island too, because NPCs know it exists in the world, so why they've never included it is beyond me. Even Mondstadt
because isn't it literally shrouded? Or am I high? Hold on. The island doesn't appear unless you get closer, right? Because it's like shrouded in mist or something. Or am I dumb? The Timeless Isle. Dragonspine, my beloved. Bro, I went through Dragonspine yesterday on my free-to-play Nuzlocke account. And the amount of close calls of death I had on that goddamn mountain was absolutely insane.
These know it exists in the world, so why they've never
it is visible?
it
Oh
is
yeah, I don't know
beyond
why
me.
it's not there
Even
then.
Mondstadt, though, for all that it lacks, is still great map design, and this only continues to improve with each region.
True.
With Mondstadt complete, it was time to tackle our next big mapping challenge,
Kane, welcome in.
scouring all of Liyue. And since
That's
we
gonna
were
take a
headed
while.
that way next, I just wanted to briefly take us back to this. Since 1.0, I have always been puzzled by this path, and just this whole island section in general. The tracks indicate a cart has been through here, and these kind of marks can be found on many roads throughout Teyvat, but why here? There's no reason for any NPCs to be using it, since the roads lead to nowhere. First path leads to a literal dead end, and the second ends us at that one domain from Zhangling's story quest. And really the only argument I could think of is maybe a lot of hunters use this area. The rest of this piece of land is completely
or maybe it was used... Honestly, it could be something dumb, dude. Like, it was used for transportation, like, years and years and years ago. A very long time ago during, like, the Archon War. Because we know some crazy stuff's happened in Liyue. Even with, like, Havriot and stuff, right? Maybe transporting salt years ago. It could be so many different things.
Off by cliffs, so there's no access to Liyue from here.
But the tracks wouldn't last that long. If they're thin...
and sees to be using it, since the roads lead to domain from Zhangling's story quest. And really the only argument I can think of is maybe a lot of hunters use this area. The rest of this piece of land is completely blocked off by cliffs, so there's no access to Liyue from here. Going around to the other side, there's even people living here,
it's a weird one.
If you looked at the map, you'd think there's absolutely nothing here at all. There's also no way of getting to this house from the rest of Liyue, or at least I thought, until I realized with how many rafts are scattered all over this region.
I would go for Nouvelet. He's very strong. Zhongli feels outdated at this point, in my opinion.
Many people must use this as a mode of transport, so whoever lives here probably takes a raft back and forth and stops off here. But let's for now continue on the main road and map out any missing features.
True, I guess it could be for contraband as well. In Liyue?
Exclusive to Liyue. They indicate a watchtower, all of which are accounted for. Qingce village and its surrounding areas are our first call, but already there seems to be something missing. You'll also find as we explore more of Liyue's map, there are a lot of missing docks. Before reaching Qingce village, let's just take a slight detour for a couple of things. Amber. No, not that amber. This amber. Or at least I think it's the same stuff you also find up in the mountains.
Yeah.
I present you with my argument as to why it should be on the map. It would add more personality to an ancient area that's full of history and be easily identifiable. And number 2, the haunted village.
I think so too.
Hill, according to an in-game book, was still inhabited until fairly recently. So with that in mind, I also blended it with the rest of the main road, rerouting back through.
I reckon at the end of this video, the map is gonna look so sick, man. I reckon it's gonna look so cool.
A beautiful bamboo forest that, considering this is a defining feature of the area, would go a long way being drawn on the map. The entrance to the village has another glaring problem. Remember how the roads in Starfell Lake weren't aligned correctly? Yeah, this is the same. Now I just want to bring your attention to both Qingce village and Chaoying village. Do you notice the stark difference? Qingce village is another that has always bugged me in this regard. It's missing half its roads and the cobbled pathing too. That way it feels like an actual village rather than an abandoned one. There's also this shrine that we can fill in real quick too. Just a few other smaller touches like the tents these treasure hoarders are using and the wooden poles. Oh, and I went back and added the oceanids.
Why? Remove it.
No, I'm just an adventurer slash cartographer, man. Yeah, I went and added the oceanids arena too. Considering it's a boss and all, I would say that including this is pretty important. Liyue has a lot of map, so we'll try to only briefly touch upon the smaller details that I noticed, especially the tiny roads, because oh boy, there are a lot of tiny roads. Was up next, and this is where we run into another unfortunate map discrepancy. You see this raft here? Why is this the only one that shows up? Game unplayable now.
Why does a raft show up on the map anyway? That's my question, dude.
Either draw them all on or none at all.
Yeah.
Consistency is key, so I also added this small dock on the map too, and fixed up these little islands. Yeah, see what I mean about the docks now? This should definitely show up on the map. Minion Village is another recently abandoned village. We know this because Ji-Chong states she grew up there, and she's still rather young, which also implies that the chasm can't have been shut for too long either, since all the people from the village migrated to the harbour or the chasm for work, so it's got to be in that time frame. The bridge is falling apart.
Chasm's been shot for a good while, no?
And this has been recorded on the map, but the roads are still very visible. There's also a missing house on the map, and lack of wooden structures, unlike the chasm. Over on this side, the road eventually leads to more ruins that don't show up on the map, and on the other, well, first we've got a road this way that you would think goes to the house up here, but instead just stops dead at a cliff. Can you imagine coming home to this? Another tough day in the mines. Well, at least I get to go home and rest now. Yeah, let me just scale on up this cliff face real quick. Tents.
That's depressing,
They appear
dude.
all over the map, and depending on the colour, they have different meanings, which is a good way for an NPC to be able to tell if the area is safe or not. When I placed the tent down near Chinksa village, it was different to this one. Adventurers tents are this dark, brownish red colour, whereas treasure hoarder tents are a more light brown, or at least they should be for the most part, because you'll often also find treasure hoarders using adventurers tents. And it does seem to change up depending on the region. The other road leads through more ruins which I added, and then out onto the beach. And while we're here, Guyun Stone Forest is half sandy beach, so where's all the beach?
Yeah, dude.
Much better. Reversing back toward the
I was gonna
harbour,
say, that area does look kind of scuffed, to be honest. I remember that's where the ruin gods are, right?
You can see there's a bunch of small disconnected paths, so we'll map all those out as we head further in. And again, it's like, pick a side, guys.
Don't ruin.
Sheesh. Either you have the ruins
Floppy,
drawn out on the map properly or don't have any. If we follow this path up and past these ruins, we'll find an entire Colosseum ruin that doesn't apparently exist.
Yeah, what? Like, okay, listen. You're gonna put a raft on the map, a literal wooden thing that moves, that people sail on. You're not gonna put a whole ass Colosseum made of stone, a permanent structure?
We'll find an entire Colosseum ruin that doesn't apparently exist. What's more interesting though is the entrance to Liyue Harbour. Building missing, the pavilion, the stone base. Also, both of these little water features are completely misaligned with the road on the map. Along this main road, we head in the direction of the chasm. Now, are you prepared to be baffled with me? Yeah, I genuinely have no explanation as to what is going on here. Look, it's even got lights along it, but it just ends here? Though it could be scenery for people to look out on. Wait, huh? I'm looking on my mini-map, but I'm not seeing anything. Well, yeah, it just isn't there at all. Further up, we come across an...
What?
Not seeing anything. Well, yeah, it just isn't there at all. Further up, we come across an abandoned village that this unreleased character comes from.
Wait.
Chat, who
Wow. Don't show leaks, dude. Listen. Brevity. You can't just be showing leaked characters like that in a video that doesn't. You gotta put a spoiler tag.
This is this a leaked character?
Yeah, stop showing
leaks. Leaks. It's currently inhabited by treasure hoarders and it still has an intact farm, so should be looking more of like a mini Jinkies village on the map. And just opposite of the abandoned village is this. This really looks like it should be a main road. At least it looks like it was meant to be, but yet again it just completely stops. I'm just saying, Hoyoverse, I'm just saying. Actually no, I'm speaking to you, Liyue Communications Office. You should be getting on this. This will be such a convenient route to connect up both sections of Liyue. Everyone make sure to sign the petition so the office listens to us, okay? We'll come back to the rest of this side soon though, as we loop back around via the chasm. And first off, there's a road offshoot here that leads out of bounds. Presumably, whenever we do get this region of Liyue released, it might finally lead somewhere. We've got another Starfell Lake instance going on here because, yeah, this is not a path. Similarly, this path also heads outside of the Paimon barrier and towards Sumeru's borders. But wrapping back around to the chasm, there are actually two roads. This one that I guess is meant to be the main route, but if you head this way from the crossroads, we pass through another old mine area and arrive at the chasm outskirts. Now, most side roads exist in Teyvat, probably thanks to NPCs that we never see, but assume are forming them after being trodden through.
Listen.
Probably thanks to NPCs that
I feel like I've seen this NPC like 50 times. Is this Timaeus?
that we never see, but assume are forming them after being trodden through enough. But why does this road exist? What need would the NPCs have to go this way rather than just using the main road, considering how close they are? Let me take us back for a moment, all the way back to Zhongli's second story quest, so we can clarify something. Liyue has miners living and operating all around this area, not just in—
Hey, hot take here for a lot of people, not for me. Zhongli's story quest Act 1 was better than Act 2.
Inside the chasm. This entire section is still being utilized as a
by quite a long shot for me.
Why do we have a million hilichurls just camping around out here? Even when the chasm was closed, there were still mining operations going on. Zhongli's story quest proves this. As for the chasm itself, its design on the map is, quite frankly, stunning. I especially love the bit here where chasm itself, its design on the map is, quite frankly, stunning.
Kind of looks like a big rock butthole. If you watched the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight last night and beforehand, you saw what they showed of Mike Tyson. If he accidentally bent over at that point, you might see something similar. It just looks like an asshole, dude.
I especially love the bit here where, well, it must be where the impact stopped, and the rest of the stone is leaning at a slight angle still.
True.
There's a lot going on in the chasm, and this already makes it feel quite busy, so I didn't add too much else. Mostly just made some small changes, such as making the roads route
You're never going to see the chasm the same ever again. You're welcome.
Most of the outer perimeter is empty anyway. For some reason, tent rules don't apply in the chasm though, so I'm going to change that up too. Mind you, this is just the chasm that doesn't follow said color coding rules, because even Chen Yuvale does. And then there's this road, which, considering the direction both of these paths go, I'm inclined to class this as a road and join them up. It's just a bit disconnected, but this is arguably the main way miners that lived up in Lumberpick Valley must be getting to and from the chasm before they had to leave. Otherwise, they would have had to venture all the way around to the other entrance. Lumberpick Valley,
I don't think I'll ever see the chasm again. Well, your name is I Am Addicted to Zhao. You probably have PTSD from that place.
To pick with this area. Also looking at you, Beta Harbor. I've covered the area in a previous video, so I won't stick here too long. The problem is it's never made explicitly clear whether this valley is used as a trade route or not, or if it's mainly enemies using it. We've got multiple occasions of it being used. In a gourmet tour video, there's also this adventure—
I was going to say, what the fuck is that edit and why is it so cool? It's from an official Genshin video?
Occasions of it being used. In a gourmet tour video, there's also this adventurer and Lagoff who mysteriously appears on the border, as well as a lot of abandoned carts. But if not that, then there's still a huge hilichurl population in this region and loads of treasure hoarder camps. All this to say that basically the roads should be marked down on the map. But we'll stop here for now because we're not headed to Sumeru just yet. Oh no. Lumberpick Valley is also the only place, aside from one other instance, where these straw huts appear on the map. Really, I'll keep it this way. I don't think huts like these are important enough to be put on the map all over, and we're busy up way too much. They're not houses or roads, nor are they—
Dude, I'm gonna just keep it a buck again, dude. I feel like these things, these clearly temporary structures shouldn't be on a map anyway. Thoughts? I get it for a video game map if they're gonna be there all the time, obviously. But in if they're trying to keep it accurate to what a map would look like, you're never gonna put temporary structures on a map. It just doesn't make sense. Someone could come and pick this tent up tomorrow. The wind can knock this down.
Any kind of signifier or landmark. But in this section, they do signify a fairly large treasure hoarder encampment. In a way, it's essentially a village. Before we approach the Minyan area, we'll just quickly go around and fix any ruin discrepancies and such around here, and also— oh, hold on, what? The map is saying that there's meant to be a ruin right here on top of me, but yeah, we'll just get rid of that. Arriving at Dunyu Ruin.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It makes more sense to me that there would be something in the world that's not on the map, not something that is on the map but not in the world.
Here on top of me, but yeah, we'll just get rid of that. Arriving at Dunyu Ruins, I was bewildered at the fact that it was missing a lot on the map. This whole area isn't filled with water in the world until I realized there's a puzzle involved here, and it was at one point covered in water. And of course the map didn't update with said change. And I would say the reason for this is simple. The region is old, and they've clearly improved a lot since then, with parts of the desert and Fontaine updating, depending on if you completed specific world quests. With that aside, it was just
I'm
a
still
few other
recovering from being
additions to
sick
make
too.
to the map, such as Jingcho's
Damn.
warehouse and a few buildings and roads.
Nice,
Going
man.
through the valley, I'm not sure why this road just stops on the map instead of going to where it ends. And right up here is another abandoned village. None of the other
Just knock it
abandoned
down.
villages have any lore or history to them, as far as I'm aware. But this one in particular I can't make sense
It's
of
got
for a few
dogs.
reasons. One, these freshly felled and organized logs. And two, the animals. But the village itself looks long gone, so how are they still out here? The only possible explanation I could come up with was, considering the geography, maybe a landslide or something to that degree. But boy, there sure are a lot of abandoned villages in Liyue. It's honestly quite sad, and points upon something that Genshin has been missing in most of the regions really: life. It wasn't until Chenyu Vale released that this got dramatically improved upon. It's just a lot of other small fixes around here. I did add a tiny embellishment to the Pyro Registfine Giga to the
Nice.
Pyro Registfine arena to make it slightly more obvious
Pokemon
what's
fan
down there.
based.
And there is technically a path through the 9 Pillars area linking back up across the river. This is that one other example I was talking about earlier. The only hut on the map outside of the chasms, so for all intents and purposes, we'll get rid of that too. Let's first get
That's
the
fair.
main road out of our hair. So making our way to the peak, there's already this little bridge section that, well, should look like a bridge probably. And we arrive
Yeah,
at
instead of a
another
road.
invisible body of water. You know, I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern here. We finally reached the peak, but there's nothing to show for our efforts. Firstly, the road doesn't stop at the right place,
What the
and
hell?
some structures are missing too. The other 2 mountains also deserve similar treatment, but with these mountains begs another question. How do normal people even get up here? Let's take a look at Mount
Climb.
Aosung first. Now the bridge does take us directly to the mountain, but then it stops here, so you would be forced to scale the cliff face. And
Jesus.
after arriving at the top, the topography is still a bit incorrect. As for Mount Hulao, this one is even worse. I've always questioned how those guys from the Archon quest managed to get here, because look at this. No bridge. So you would likely have to start at the foot of the mountain here and climb.
Wait, true.
This one is even worse. I've always questioned how those guys from the Archon quest managed to get here, because look at this.
What
No
the hell?
bridge. So you would likely have to start at the foot of the mountain here and climb up. But how would an NPC even reach this area? Because for one, given we don't have much information on wind gliders— oh, sorry, wrong footage. The only people from Mondstadt are able to use them because of one line in particular
Huh.
from the Sumeru wind glider, stating that the Animo Archon's blessing is required to use them. Anyone from outside would still need to be blessed by the Animo Archon. And there's no other information, at least that I could find. So an NPC can't really just
Yeah,
glide
they wouldn't be able to
down.
get
The only
there.
other way I could find was this one ladder. When I tell you, I spent ages trying to find any other accessible route to the ground below the peaks. Well, yeah, I spent ages. And I found nothing else
You know
apart
what?
from
This is a throwaway comment,
when I
but
text, well, yeah, I spent ages.
God damn it.
Any other accessible route to the ground below the peaks.
From all the content in the game that we've got so far and the surprise characters and any other characters, other than Capitano, I think this was the best we've had. I actually felt robbed when we saw Fossilor's design. Not that I don't like Farina's. Hey, not that I don't like Farina's. Farina's design is also absolutely fantastic. But I felt robbed that we didn't get this godlike design in the game. Also Skirk, I guess. But yeah, this design was absolutely phenomenal, dude, for Fossilor.
Yeah, I
Absolutely
spent
phenomenal.
ages. And I found nothing else apart from this one
do
tiny
you feel about
opening
Chaska?
here as well. This entire northern region of Liyue is practically
Design,
abandoned and filled with numerous monsters and treasure
Gameplay
hoarders.
looks cool.
But at one point in time, it seemed many people lived here. And these houses are still somehow more intact than the ones over at Wuwang Hill. I know it's just reusing house models at the end of the day, but there is still a difference between, say, this one and one from Wuwang Hill. Plus, if this village was indeed older, they could have shown us this by having the buildings in ruins.
True.
This is ultimately why it's so difficult to properly deduce how old some of these villages are. At the end of the day, the devs probably thought, yeah, an abandoned house looks good here. Now it's time to find a
Oh, yeah, I
route
guess Signora
and
too,
coast our
but
way
I still
along
think
the
Fossilor
river
was
to
better.
Chenyu Vale. Though I can't say we're off to a great start here. Why exactly does the path start here on the map instead of
Oh,
where it
true.
actually starts in the overworld? And while we're on the topic of roads, Chenyu Vale has a big
You
problem.
think Olaron's combat looks cooler than Chaska's? Don't tell my friend I said that. I agree with you. I think Olaron looks far cooler in general than Chaska, and I will be hoping to get him.
It's missing way too many crucial roads. Look at this. A major dock. Good thing I know exactly how to get there. Oh wait, I don't.
Oh.
There's technically a crossing back here, but you wouldn't know unless you checked for yourself. Good to see at least
I would like Chaska to be brighter, like bird feather. Brighter! Damn.
Map color coding is correct. The one saving grace is the village. Such a nicer put together piece of map art. Well, okay, the pond is missing this huge rock tree and oh, I guess whoever lives here isn't significant enough to have a path going to their house. There were a few other paths and missing decorations. So I also added them on the way to Yilong Wharf. Though Yilong Wharf itself didn't need any changes except for the boat. Heading south was another main road unconnected to the rest of town and the only watchtower in the Chenyu Vale region. This whole area serves as what looks to be a military base.
Yeah.
And I don't think the rest of Liyue has anything like this, though this isn't drawn on properly either. In view of the bridges and stairs on this side, I decided to change this up too, so it more accurately represented what was here. Now, most of southern Chenyu Vale from here on out is uninhabited, so just keep that in mind as we cover this last part. Oh yeah, this whole pond is just missing. And this bit doesn't even look like a waterfall, so we'll just fix that out. The rest
Channel
was
name's
mainly a few small ruin additions and roads
Revity.
until we end up back at the tea tree, and I'm going all around the edge of these cliffs trying to figure out how any NPC is getting down there until I notice these planks. Well, they're certainly not getting down there anymore without a lot of work involved.
No.
Also, I don't know why the water in this tiny section looks like this, because if you come down and look at it with me, it doesn't look any different to the rest of Chenyu.
I guess just because it's thinner and more shallow.
No vision, no powers. You've spent ages trekking across Chenyu's vales and finally arrive at the mystical floating island, only to find that the bridge stops here. And sure, at the end of the day, the player doesn't need this wooden structure. We can just magic our way up.
Everyone
but you
else
either
does.
stick to the world building and complete the structure, or just don't have it entirely. It makes zero sense, and if anything, takes away the impression this world is lived in, and kind of smacks you in the face with the reality that this is just a game. Hoyoverse, I want to pretend that my average NPC is getting up here. How can I do that now? But with that, Liyue was officially done, and it was finally time to set our sights toward new horizons. Horizon Zero
Inazuma.
Dawn?
No.
Aloy? Who? Have
Wait.
you ever noticed how Fontaine has basically no civilization outside of the main city and this one tiny village in the corner? It's almost like that's the theme
I feel like we skipped a crucial step.
of the whole region. What? Like they're putting on a show when in actuality there's problems.
I guess
behind
Inazuma's
the
going to be later. I
scenes.
guess
Like
we're
a
not going in order of release, but maybe in order of where we come across the nations, like closest to each other.
Spectacle, because we're in Fontaine and it's like the spectacle of the core.
Because it kind of links to
And don't get me wrong,
Liyue.
the spectacles that are there are absolutely breathtaking, and I can understand it from a lore perspective.
But then why not
also,
Sumeru?
Since Fontaine has
I
that
don't know.
class divide undercurrent going on with its storytelling. But this
Weird
is
order,
also
but we'll-
why I
we'll
love the
roll with
direction
it.
they've gone with Natlan. It feels so much more alive. Also, I was scouring through Reddit quite a bit for this very video.
There's always
and
a reason.
Came across this one Reddit user equating Teyvat to basically a Disneyland and how Hoyo take a Disneyland
Oh, I
approach
guess
to
Chenyu Vale, yeah.
locations. And honestly, pretty much any argument about Genshin's world and its game design probably could just come down to this. And I've not been able to stop thinking about that since then, so thank you, Percy Exley. I suppose at the very least, this makes our job a little easier because of all the flooding and water. So
True.
there isn't really a lot of land. First and foremost, we should
Aw.
address the tent situation on the Fontaine map, because for some reason in Fontaine,
Man.
they didn't put down any tents to indicate where treasure hoarders or shelters
Good.
could be. I posit that we consider these blue tents as the Fontainian equivalent of an adventurer's tent. And as for the treasure hoarder encampments, well, they can be the
Tents
same
shouldn't be
color
on the
as they
map.
were in Liyue. This whole island is particularly egregious when it comes to missing details. Missing wooden piers, so many roads, and I
that
mean,
is a lot.
Hoyoverse,
Jesus.
what is this? If the Weeping
Oh,
Willow
yeah.
can be on the map, then this also should 100% be on it. There's a
True.
very sizable treasure hoarder population in Irene's forest, hence why it makes no sense in there not being any indication of this. Also, I feel sorry for whoever lives in these two houses. Like, how have you not been robbed yet?
Yeah,
But
that is kinda
anyway,
crazy,
continuing
dude.
Up, we
Maybe the
then
treasure
pass
hoarders
through a
live there,
large
though.
village ruin, which you wouldn't know was there if you looked at the map either. And Liam, watching you. Before we head over to the Institute, here's some extra info about Fontaine map icons.
Cody, welcome in.
This symbol right here means there's an airship at the location, and this symbol represents these energy towers. Can we just acknowledge for a second too how there are 4 different Hillagel camps literally right outside the opera? Do you want to deal with that? No? Okay. We'll leave the opera to its fate.
Oh shit.
Through this cross-section here is another confusing addition to Genshin's roads that make no sense. Was there maybe at one point in time a path through this little stream and the flooding wiped it out of existence? Further up past the Pure Water Factory are more treasure hoarders and ruins, and this beautiful spot right here. Just take this all in for a moment with me. I love the detail that the camera moves, so it's framed just like the painting. Look, look, look. This is just like the tree from earlier. It looks kind of like they draw outlines of certain landmarks and then just never finish them.
Yeah.
There is a lot going on here, and I doubt I can cover every single tiny change I've made in the Institute region, and it's mostly more small changes here and there. How does that look? Yeah, okay, good. Give me just the moment to give your old home a little sparkle, a bit of that, a bedazzling. Could you please stop mewing at me for just 1 second? Okay, I'm done, I promise. Bye! I can see the city lights off in the distance now, so let's head in that direction next. Up at the foot of Mount Essus is the only still surviving village in all of Fontaine, and it leaves a lot to be desired. We have that one quest where that guy yells at you if you step on his flower field, which is
annoying, man.
Fair enough, I mean, I would be angry too if someone stepped on my flowers. But anyway, we're getting off track here. My point being, where are the farms? At least Liyue and Mondstadt have some
that guy was actually a very cute NPC as well. Wasn't that the spoiler alert here if you haven't done Fontaine quests, by the way? Wasn't that the grandfather of the child in the world quest for either Unfinished Comedy or something, or one of the one with the Hilichol guy? Forget his name already, Jesus.
Evidence of an agricultural industry. Fontaine is just all over the place. It's almost like the region has been heavily damaged by natural disasters, and many people have fled to the city and are just pretending everything is okay, when in reality it's all falling apart. So I also just made the map more accurate to the village, as well as any missing roads. I'm not going to count boats, because we're just going to go along with the whole video game illusion that they're always moving, and not actually static. I mean, in Fontaine they're basically placed as sort of props, right? To give you the impression that people are actually using them, but they never move. But yeah, it makes no sense to put them on the map, so we'll just leave them be. Looking closer at Elenus, it contains a lot of towers and airships. I wonder if this is to do with Elenus himself and the energy he produces. Starting off at Elenus's head, as soon as we arrive, there are a whole lot of roads and side paths missing on the map. But the thing about Elenus is that at least a lot of the paths are interconnected, and it actually seems fairly easy to navigate.
Seems like they got better with the maps as the regions went on, for sure.
Too bad no NPCs actually seem to inhabit it anymore, aside from the Melazines underground. Right next to this road, there's yet another Fatui tent missing. Heading further in, I was confused for quite a while about
I'm curious if she's going to do the underground as well.
Many of Elenus's bones weren't showing up on the map, when I realized it's because they were blended in with the green of the grass. So I did adjust the color when I realized it's because they were blended in with the green of
I feel like that's just lazy. No shot. Just change the color of the bone, man. I get it, because like some of them have got like moss growing on them, but nah, dude. You can't. That's
of the grass. So I did adjust the colors just a little to be more obvious. This entire abandoned village also does not appear on the map, and just a lot of other stuff over in this area too.
Wow,
around the other
that was a big change, dude.
And just a lot of other stuff over in this area
Jesus.
too. Around the other side toward the Statue of the Seven is seemingly the only dock for the entire island. On the southernmost part of the island is a village that seems only recently abandoned, and the treasure hoarders have moved in. Across over on the neighbouring island is another village just like this one, both of which need that home improvement treatment. Now that we're in the Bella region, we can gauge how many docks this island has, and it is a grand total of 2 that are also both missing from the map. How is any NPC supposed to know where to dock their boat when they can't even locate the dock? Moving on, the remaining islands.
Help him instead of filming.
Just to know where to dock their boat when they can't even locate the dock. Moving on, the remaining islands are just more of the same, connecting roads up. Speaking of, how is drawing the road onto an abandoned island more important than the one for a whole village? True. This is a problem that all the regions face, because you know that some of these places have not seen life for years, so how can a path even possibly exist? Before we leave Fontaine for good, there
I don't get people like this, man. I'm gonna keep it a buck. If this was a kid, sure. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I really I'm joking. I really don't understand people that can just film animals when they're clearly gonna like get hurt, because this is very obviously like the dog. There's something going across here. The dog is clearly gonna get hurt, dude. As soon as it got to this part, I'd be dropping the fucking phone and running over to help the dog. I wouldn't still be recording when the dog goes underwater. That shit's fucked up, man.
They can't even
That shit's
locate
fucked up.
the
You have
dog.
plenty of time to not do that.
Road on, or path
So
even
stupid.
possibly exist. Before we leave Fontaine for good, there is one more thing staring us right in the face. The water. As you can see, the deeper parts of the ocean, they have already started off by using a darker blue for certain areas. We're just here to finish the job. And we can't confirm with any other water in Teyvat, but with Fontaine, we can dive in and find out for ourselves, so we can better illustrate the deeper parts of the ocean. And now there's only one place left in Fontaine to assess, and that is a tiny island all the way over here by the name of Petrichor.
True deep peony.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh my sweet beloved Beta Harbour, how I mourn the loss of what you could have been. Setting off from Beta Harbour, I sort of meandered around Vanarana for a while, because I'll be honest, I can't really tell what's going on here. A lot of it is under cover of the trees, but there's still plenty that isn't, and the way it's been drawn makes everything look like it's underground when we know NPCs can still access Vanarana just fine in the normal world. There's a few other items to address before we delve deeper into Sumeru. It's map symbols. So houses outside of the main city look like this.
That's pretty cool.
The appearance of them on the map is very inconsistent. We've got a few instances, such as Vimara, this Eremite camp, and all of Apalm Woods, but by and large, most have not been mapped out. So we'll adjust that whenever we pass these houses, even if they're abandoned. I'll just change how they look slightly. Gandalfville is unique in its map design since their houses are more pod-shaped and attached to trees. And finally, unique in its map design since their houses are more pod-shaped.
Do y'all remember when kids started eating these? Dude, I think natural selection is okay at a certain point.
And attached to trees. And finally, the Aranara houses. You know how we established earlier in the video how Hoyu kind of align out certain landmarks, but then never draw them in? Yeah, this is almost every Aranara house. See here? Aranara house. There? Also Aranara house. Okay, where were we? Vanarana involved adding a few missing details here and there. Oh yeah, this icon represents an Eremite palace. As you can see though, a lot of houses, some abandoned, some not, but they are still being used. Even if it's by treasure hoarders or eremites. A lot of small docks and piers.
I mean, there are still TikTok trends that get kids to jump in front of trucks. Yeah, so this is what I'm talking about, right? So here's the thing. If you see a TikTok of a kid jumping in front of a truck and your first thought is, I should do that too. That's the type of natural selection. I'm like, okay, if that's your first thought, Jesus, take the wheel, you know? On a real note, I obviously don't think that. But, like, how fucking stupid and brain dead do you have to fucking be, dude? Come the fuck on. A little bit of common sense would be nice.
And here is where we get to the fun part. Have you ever wondered how NPCs get to Dory's Palace? Or even how they get to Lumberpick Valley? Well, look no further. It's right here. Yeah, except how would we even know, because this main road is also not on the map. How does a road so crucial to Sumeru's trade not get filled in? This whole entire area is missing so many roads, you wouldn't know that it even joins back up with the road in Lumberpick Valley unless you looked really closely. With this palace, they didn't even colour in the ground around it. And it's here that we come across our first watchtower. And actually, that's a good point looking back. There aren't any towers over in the Vanarana region. Seems like a bit of an oversight from the Academia, if you ask me, especially since Beta Harbour is up here. Back en route from Sumeru City, there are a few things of note.
Everyone included, drink water or something. I don't have any water with me, but I do have some washing detergent downstairs. Hold on. Kidding. What do you think I am? 2018 TikTok?
This boat at the city we'll get rid of. And this is also where I would like to make the argument for Sumeru's tents. As you can see, these kinds of tents are quite common throughout Sumeru, but they do actually have their own icon already on the map. However, it was used only for one specific tent and not all of them for some reason. But I posit we use this icon for each one we come across since it already exists. And then also for the treasure hoarder tents, to keep things logistical, change their colours to match the rest of Teyvat's map. We gotta keep that colour coding going. Past Vimara village is this road not on the map. There's a similar road past Port Almost that leads up to an
Such a
Eremite
beautiful
palace,
region,
but
man.
again, no indication of this. I mean,
Beautiful
think about
region.
it. Eremites make up a large portion of the Sumeru population. You'd think they would be given a bit more priority, but going back to Port Almost, again, the river leading up to it is covered in docks where people clearly park their boats, and half of this one is missing. Just like with Sumeru City, I'm going to remove the boats from the map because, as I said in Fontaine, they're boats. They're not technically stationary, so it makes no sense for them to be on the map. They wouldn't appear on a real life map, so they won't appear here. From Port Almost, we'll make it on the map. They wouldn't appear on
What was that from? You wouldn't. What was that font from? What was this? This was from... Oh my god, I'm going to show my age here. But I think this was from old VHSs when you could pirate them for the first time. And it was, you wouldn't steal from a shop. Don't pirate the video. Or something like that, right? Yeah, you wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a car. Oh my god.
So they won't appear
you
here.
Wouldn't download a car.
Almost, we'll make our way through here first. Before we head past the garden, just quickly, I think the fact this bridge is broken should be a bit more obvious. And past the garden, if we go back here, there is in actuality a freeway this side of the mountain too, as long as you don't mind getting your socks wet. This stretch in particular surprises me because there is a lot going on here. The Eremites are living in villages and forming their own communities, same as the rest of Sumeru, but the map certainly doesn't suggest this. Some of these watchtowers, I don't know how forest rangers are even accessing them. With great effort, that's for sure. That is literally a mountain they have to climb. Plus, I'm not gonna lie, I would not want to be living in a house right in the heart of Sumeru.
Oh my god, it's Nilu's character trial.
There are way too many dangers. A lot of missing roads around this entire section. There's quite a number of old villages around the southern borders that I also accounted for, and added any other necessary changes there. Most people in Sumeru have no reason to go into the desert, at least not deep into the heart of it. And the desert is a lot more difficult when it comes to the roads because, well, half of them
F you. Listen, I think gameplay is the most interesting thing about Nilu. I think her gameplay is the best thing about her by far. I think she's very, very cool gameplay wise. I think her kit is very interesting and looks stunning and beautiful. I still stand by the fact that they did her absolutely dirty by making her character trial in her quest 2 fucking rich ballin' tigers. They did her so dirty, dude. It's disgusting. It's disgusting.
And see, but really there isn't even a whole lot that needs detail.
Nobody got a chance to try it. It's almost as if they didn't want to sell her.
Person is coming out here and mapping everything in a perpetual sandstorm. Oh wait, surely paths couldn't even exist in a place like this. But I did still try to map out anything I could find. I think to make things simpler, with the desert, I'll just provide you all with a brief summary of the changes I made. I added paths here and there where I thought it would be suitable, mainly in the rock formations, as well as a few ruins and houses, but nothing drastic. The upper half of the desert required a bit more, but since it was mostly cut off from the rest of the desert, it was easier to see everything.
Nuva didn't even get a character trial. Didn't he get rid of the Archon quest? Maybe not. He don't even need one.
What's that? Okay, Hoyo, you can't just go changing the icons whenever you feel like it. 2 regions ago, this for 2e10 looked like this. I made some paths a bit more obvious and added a few more special identifying features, such as more of these crystals and roots down in the swamp below the tree. And of course the iconic bubble tree, at least with Sumeru and Fontaine. Most of the map updates important areas alongside quest progression, so that's one less change needed.
True.
Just 2 more regions to go, and I say we push our way through the scorching Sumeru desert.
And isn't this going to be a weird one to do, I feel like,
There isn't a whole lot to talk about in Natlan's case, mostly because there's only one part of it out so far. Now the entrance isn't very impressive, but then again, we don't actually know how most people get to and from Natlan. There is 0 information in the world that I could find that would indicate how NPCs arrive here, but I tell you, from a player's perspective, as in where they put the waypoint,
Monday for Drip Market, yeah.
Absolute masters
Monday before
at that
the update,
first
usually.
region impression, so long as you arrive the intended way. But Natlan is still far from disappointing with its map art, from the tribes and their unique aesthetics to other important landmarks. Though this section could be improved a little so it's easier to read, it's missing half a path, and it looks like one path connects up with another when they're both separate. But if we head away from the Children of Echoes, you can see with Natlan, they've started placing down more important points of interest, such as the sulfurous veins or these puddle things near the water tribe. Hence why I added the amber to those other parts of Liyue, though maybe I spoke near the water tribe. Hence why I added the amber to those other parts of Liyue, though maybe I spoke too soon. Natlan still suffers just like all the other regions with a plethora of pathing issues. The pathing of this road is just flat out incorrect. Some of the little pit stop areas too, and the Saurian Pokemon centers aren't filled in, but to give them credit where it's due, at least most of their wooden structures, which there are a lot of, do show up, though I suppose that's out of necessity considering there's gameplay focused around traversing platforms and cliffs. It's very different to the other regions too, because because any ordinary NPC is capable of performing these traversal feats that would be near impossible outside of Natlan. Walking? Nah, I can just turn into a Yoshi and fly. And a lot of living spaces
So crazy,
are comprised of tents as opposed to buildings. Natlan does have watchtowers too, but only a select few, and could really do with some in the southern region. Northern Natlan is where it lets itself down a little bit. Lots of missing and confusing paths here as well. Southside is missing a few piers here, the usual. But overall, Natlan is still very impressive, and you can see how far they've come with their map design.
Definitely got a lot more accurate. The almighty Narukami Ogosho, God of Thunder.
Start. An entire section.
Wahoo! The statue of her excellency, the almighty Narukami Ogosho, God of Thunder.
Of Rito Island is just cut off. Okay. What's the situation? Well, sir, we're missing a house. Nope, make that 2 houses. And in fact, an entire dock while you're at it. In all my years of operating, I've never seen anything like it. Surely it gets better.
Nope.
Well, I see on the map quite a lot of Hilichurl huts, so we can't go wrong there. How can I play the game now, knowing that this Hilichurl hut is in fact a Fatui hut? My whole world has been turned upside down after
maybe they're
finding
cured.
this out. You know, I was thinking of inviting the Hilichurls that lived here over for some coffee, but now there's also a sizable chunk of Araumi's ruins missing. You'll find as we explore in Inazuma that these icons, which connote a Araumi's that lived here over for some coffee, but now there's also a sizable chunk of Araumi's.
This looks sick, and I don't think I've ever noticed that on the map. But like, I guess because there's other icons near it and stuff. But this image on the map is very, very cool.
Ruins missing.
Oh, damn.
You'll find as we explore in Inazuma that these icons, which connote a Torigate, have the consistency of my dad every time he leaves to go get milk. And they're all missing from this shrine area. Hello? What's this all about? Does everyone just collectively forget there's a road or something whenever they enter Chinju Forest?
Probably.
It's the Tanuki, isn't it? Well, it must be them, because Amakane Tourism Island is also missing any sign of life. With Konosuka, I actually made a mistake in a previous video in which I counted how many docks Inazuma had in total, and I missed this one. This is exactly because it didn't show up on the map that I didn't realize it does in fact have a dock, albeit kind of broken now. The Kudra encampment though is surprisingly accurate to its in-world counterpart, so I didn't need to change anything in this vicinity, apart from a missing road and a house over there. Oh, and also these icons are those cannons that you find.
Wait, is that the cat house?
Apart from a missing road and a house over there.
I don't remember.
And also these icons are those cannons that you find all over Inazuma. The main island where
No.
Tatarasuna is has a few issues, namely more missing paths and small wooden structures, as well as a watchtower. Now I see we're adding houses that aren't there. And this is like those snail houses back in Liyue, so it's using the wrong icon too. Okay, to be fair to this is basically a nuclear waste site, so there needs to be some kind of warning for this. Having it appear on the map does make sense in this regard, though I would go as far to say the surrounding area should be purple. Speaking of purple,
or green.
We'll treat Raiden's Gorge the same way too. Consistency? I hardly know her. On Yashiori's map, there are these large Hilichurl hut icons only found
Is it just me, or is her editing becoming more and more Maxwell coded, Bran? Her editing is getting far better. More engaging, for sure.
They're not
I love it.
Hilichurl huts. What is this? This one is a treasure hoarder hut, and here there isn't even anything. I'm standing right on top of whatever this.
But I will say, Maxwell coded is maybe a step too far. I don't know anybody that has editing like Maxwell or even close to it.
This is meant to be. Orobashi's bones aren't always consistent either. As for Watatsumi,
His editing
it's
is
probably
fucking wild,
the
dude.
least problematic island. Mostly just missing paths here and there. And as a bonus, I changed the toilet down to Enkanomiya slightly. It's clear with Seirai Island that they hadn't yet implemented map updates, since it thinks there's still water here. The rest of the island is also quite inaccurate. See this road here? Doesn't exist. Half of the village is missing, and why even add a Torii gate here if you're not going to add them all? Then there's the Cat Island that has a few ponds we should add, as well as the Neko statue. If Tsurumi Island has been covered in a perpetual fog this whole time until the traveler arrived,
then it shouldn't
maps
matter.
This island out? But there you have it, folks. That's all the stuff that was missed or never included on the map. I did of course try my best to make sure all parts of the map were covered, but even then I most likely still missed things. And
Is there an image of the before and after? I want to see them side by side.
Been done differently, feel free to let me know. This was a fun little challenge, and I loved exploring all the corners of the map. It's interesting to see now that we've gone over it all. Overall, I think there's parts that I've added that are also unnecessary. It really comes down to how you interpret it and how you view the function of the map, but I do think certain aspects of
that ain't going to be in the inside of the castle. Well, she didn't do any underground areas. I assume that's probably going to be a different video.
Especially when it comes to the older versions, have areas that don't make much sense. What do you think in the end? What parts would you have kept in or added? And what would you do differently?
I wouldn't keep it or add anything because I'm not unhinged. But I appreciate the fact that she is.